What is the brain? The brain is a complex organ that controls thought, memory, emotion, touch, motor skills, vision, breathing, temperature, hunger, and every process that regulates our body. Welcome. If you are new to my channel, please hit subscribe, like, share and hit the notification bell for updates of my new video. What is the brain? It controls thought, emotion, motor skills, breathing, hunger, memory, touch, vision, temperature, and every process that regulates our body. What is the brain made of? The brain weighs about 3 pounds in the average adult. The brain is about 60% fat. The remaining 40% is a combination of water, protein, carbohydrates and salts. The brain itself is not a muscle. It contains blood vessels and nerves, including neurons and glial cells. What is the gray matter and white matter? Gray and white matter are two different regions of the central nervous system. In the brain, gray matter refers to the darker outer portion, while white matter describes the lighter, inner section underneath. In the spinal cord, this order is reversed, the white matter is on the outside and the gray matter sits within. See figure. Each region serves different role. Gray matter is primarily responsible for processing and interpreting information, while white matter transmits that information to other parts of the nervous system. Gray matter is primarily composed of neuron somas, the round central cell bodies, and white matter is mostly made of axons, the long stems that connects neurons together, wrapped in myelin, a protective coating. The different composition of neuron parts is why the two appear as separate shades on certain scans. How does the brain work? The brain sends and receives chemical and electrical signals throughout the body. Different signals control different processes, and your brain interprets each. Some make you feel tired, for example, while others make you feel pain. Some messages are kept within the brain, while others are relayed through the spine and across the body's vast network of nerves to distant extremities. To do this, the central nervous system relies on billions of neurons, called the nerve cells. Main parts of the brain and their functions. 1. Cerebrum. This is the largest part of the brain. The cerebrum initiates and coordinates movement and regulates temperature. Other areas of the cerebrum enable speech, judgment, thinking and reasoning, problem solving, emotions and learning. Other functions relate to vision, hearing, touch and other senses. 2. Cerebral cortex. Cerebral cortex is the outer layer that lies on top of your cerebrum. The cerebral cortex is divided into two halves, or hemispheres. It is covered with ridges called gyri, and folds called sulci, refer to the figure. The two halves join at a large, deep sulcus, the interhemispheric fissure, also known as the medial longitudinal fissure that runs from the front of the head to the back. The right hemisphere controls the left side of the body, and the left half controls the right side of the body. The two halves communicate with one another through a large, C-shaped structure of white matter and nerve pathways called the corpus callosum. The corpus callosum is in the center of the cerebrum. Cerebellum. The cerebellum, or known as the little brain, is a fist-sized portion of the brain located at the back of the head, below the temporal and occipital lobes and above the brainstem. Like the cerebral cortex, it has two hemispheres. The outer portion contains neurons, and the inner area communicates with the cerebral cortex. Its function is to coordinate voluntary muscle movements and to maintain posture, balance and equilibrium. New studies are exploring the cerebellum's involvement in addiction, autism, and schizophrenia. Brainstem. The brainstem connects the cerebrum with the spinal cord. The brainstem includes the midbrain, the pons and the medulla. Brainstem is the bottom, stalk-like portion of your brain. It connects your brain to your spinal cord. Your brainstem sends messages to the rest of your body to regulate balance, breathing, heart rate and more. Sudden injuries in brain or heart conditions may affect how your brainstem works. Midbrain. The midbrain or mesencephalon is a very complex structure with a range of different neuron clusters, nuclei and colliculi, neural pathways and other structures. These features facilitate various functions, from hearing and movement to calculating responses and environmental changes. The midbrain also contains the substantia nigra, an area affected by Parkinson's disease that is rich in dopamine neurons and part of the basal ganglia, which enables movement and coordination. Medulla. At the bottom of the brainstem, the medulla is where the brain meets the spinal cord. The medulla is essential to survival. Functions of the medulla regulate many bodily activities, including heart rhythm, breathing, blood flow, and oxygen and carbon dioxide levels. The medulla produces reflexive activities such as sneezing, vomiting, coughing, and swallowing. Pons. The pons is the origin for 4 of the 12 cranial nerves, which enable a range of activities such as tear production, chewing, blinking, focusing vision, balance, hearing, and facial expression. The pons is the connection between the midbrain and the medulla. Dura mater. The outermost layer, the dura mater, is thick and tough. It includes 2 layers. The periosteal layer of the dura mater lines the inner dome of the cranium, and the meningeal layer is below that. Spaces between the layers allow for the passage of veins and arteries that supply blood flow to the brain. Arachnoid mater. The arachnoid mater is a thin, web-like layer of connective tissue that does not contain nerves or blood vessels. Below the arachnoid mater is the cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF. This fluid cushions the entire central nervous system, and continually circulates around these structures to remove impurities. Pia mater. The pia mater is a thin membrane that hugs the surface of the brain and follows its contours. The pia mater is rich with veins and arteries. Pituitary gland. Sometimes called the master gland, the pituitary gland is a pea-sized structure found deep in the brain behind the bridge of the nose. The pituitary gland governs the function of other glands in the body, regulating the flow of hormones from the thyroid, adrenals, ovaries, and testicles. It receives chemical signals from the hypothalamus through its stalk and blood supply. Hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is located above the pituitary gland and sends its chemical messages that control its function. It regulates body temperature, synchronizes sleep patterns, control hunger and thirst, and also plays a role in some aspects of memory and emotion. Amygdala. Small almond-shaped structures, an amygdala is located under each hemisphere of the brain. Included in the limbic system, the amygdalae regulate emotion and memory and are associated with the brain's reward system, stress, and the flight or fight response when someone perceives a threat. Hippocampus. A curved seahorse-shaped organ on the underside of each temporal lobe, the hippocampus is part of a larger structure called hippocampal formation. It supports memory, learning, navigation, and perception of the space. It receives information from the cerebral cortex and may play a role in Alzheimer's disease. Pineal gland. The pineal gland is located deep in the brain and attached by a stalk to the top of the third ventricle. The pineal gland responds to light and dark and secretes melatonin, which regulates circadian rhythms and sleep-wake cycle. Ventricles and cerebrospinal fluid. Deep in the brain are 4 open areas with passageways between them. They also open into the central spinal canal and the area beneath the arachnoid layer of the meninges. The ventricles manufacture cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF, a watery fluid that circulates in and around the ventricles and spinal cord, and between the meninges. CSF surrounds and cushions the spinal cord and brain, washes out wastes and impurities, and delivers nutrients. Circadian rhythm is your sleep and wake pattern over the course of a 24-hour cycle, or this is termed also as part of the body's internal clock, running in the background to carry out essential functions and processes. The frontal lobe is considered the emotional control center and the home of our personality. The frontal lobe controls higher-level thinking, reasoning, planning, language, long-term memory, impulse control, problem-solving, emotions, judgment, motor function, initiation, social, sexual behavior. While the frontal has many different roles, the overall function can be remembered by the word action. This will include both mental and physical actions. Example of motor function includes skeletal movement, ocular movement, speech control, and facial movement. Whenever you think of the overall function of the parietal lobe, think of the word somatosensory. The parietal lobe is involved in making us consciously aware of somatic sensations such as touch, pain, pressure, temperature, vibration and others. The parietal lobe also plays a key role in processing and analyzing somatosensory information to provide us meaning and understanding of the stimulus. The parietal lobe is involved in proprioception as it processes sensory stimuli and provide us with spatial and body position awareness, coordination visual, auditory, and somatosensory stimuli. Function of the temporal lobe. Awareness of auditory stimuli. Hearing sounds. Pitch. Frequency. Processing auditory stimuli. Analyzing. Recognizing. Memory of auditory stimuli. Whenever you think of the overall function of the temporal lobe, think of auditory. The temporal lobe functions to make us consciously aware of auditory stimuli such as pitches, frequencies, and sounds. The temporal lobe also processes and analyzes auditory stimuli for us to recognize. The temporal lobe is also involved in the sense of smell as well. Function of the occipital lobe. Awareness of visual stimuli like seeing objects. Processing of visual stimuli, analyzing, recognizing visual stimuli like shapes, color, sizes. Whenever you think of the overall function of the occipital lobe, think of the word vision. The occipital lobe not only makes us consciously aware of visual stimuli, but also help us analyze, process, and recognize what the stimulus is. Thank you for watching. If you want to study nursing anywhere, please subscribe, like, share, and click the notification bell for updates of my new video. If any concerns, just comment below.